Welcome to this forum highlighting the community partnerships between the Deaconess Center for Child Wellbeing in collaboration with the Children's Defense Fund's Freedom Schools with congregations in the St. Louis area, namely in this setting, Peace United Church of Christ and St. John's the Beloved Community United Church of Christ.
The relationship between Deaconess Foundation and the Children's Defense Fund really began prior to us first having a Freedom Schools here in St. Louis in 2017. So under the great leadership of Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, Deaconess really identified some strategies and priorities around child advocacy in 2014. And one of those priorities was to cultivate congregations here in the St. Louis area for advocacy. Thought that it would be a unique opportunity to deeply engage congregations in our UCC conferences here in actually serving children for many weeks during the summer, and to also equip those volunteers with the tools to advocate for children and their well-being well beyond the 7-week program. So the Children's Defense Fund is the nation's largest child advocacy organization. And the Freedom Schools program is one of the many initiatives that CDF created and that they continue to sponsor nationwide. The 7-week program provides summer enrichment, and it centers around 5 essential components. So it's high quality academic engagement and enrichment, parent and family involvement, civic engagement and social action, intergenerational leadership development, and nutritional, physical, and mental health. And so the enrichment, though it's centered in the foundation or all of those 5 components, it's really rooted in an integrated reading curriculum to provide children in grades that we serve, kindergarten through 5, with those literary skills that will help to curb the summer learning loss. And what we say, close opportunity gaps. They are led by young adult college students, folks who have this passion and excitement for serving and being social change agents. And they are the ones actually leading each and every day in implementing this curriculum. Also, a huge component of this is the parent and family engagement. We partner with grassroots organizing and mobilizing and advocacy organizations to make this work happen, so that we're engaging our parents and our families in the social justice movement, the racial justice movement.
Reverend Higgins and Reverend Bruner, I know that the context in which your churches, you're both UCC churches and you're in very different contexts. How the Project of Freedom Schools, in your experience, in your congregations, connects to your congregation's sense of mission and purpose.
Honored to be on a panel with some women of power and grace. It's always a pleasure to see the faces of real comrades in the struggle for liberation. I have had the glorious testimony of being connected to Freedom Schools in 3 ways, not only as brand new pastor of a church that hosts, but I was also connected through the parent and community engagement sessions as the co-founder and one of the lead organizers for Partnerships of Action St. Louis, which led a political activism and civic engagement session for Freedom Schools just a few years ago. And I was delighted to engage with parents as a trainer for those sessions and as a parent. The third and most important way I've engaged with Freedom Schools. I have 2 babies, Moses and Matilda, who can read when I tell you these children could read a college textbook. And the reason for that is CDF Freedom Schools. It is because I rolled up to St. John's, a church I had no idea I would ever be the pastor of at the time, those years ago. I pulled up to St. John's, a beloved community, like someone told me I need to stop by and put my children in a space where Black people are concerned about Black liberation, and we are doing it ourselves for ourselves. And so when I think about the context in which my babies were learning, the context in which I was invited to teach political activism, even when Action St. Louis pulled up at Peace to run a session on political activism and learning and understanding civic engagement in the city of St. Louis, we were welcomed through the lens of knowing that those who are furthest back in the field, psychologists call this vantage point wisdom, those who are the furthest removed from political power are the ones who have the highest and deepest wisdom on what impact any move will make for the liberation of everyone. And that is to literally say that if you are a trans Black woman, your freedom has direct impact on the liberation, understanding, equality, and therefore the actual abundant life of a white, cisgender, heterosexual man. And so when we think about our children who lack opportunities, if we focus on the ones who are most removed from political power, even our white brothers and sisters can show up, show that solidarity, take that risk, lose a little budget, hang out in the world of, you know, the realm and spaces of learning more about Fannie Lou Hamer than you are about Marie Curie. And show up and realize that it actually sets you free into a further abundance. So I believe that St. John's Church is a place that has always refused to view our position, our human condition, as scarcity. The world looks at us, or, you know, a lot of people out there look at St. John's, they look at the corner of Grand and Lee and they say, this is a location of scarcity. But actually, in truth, abundance lives in the Black church tradition. We are born from the abundance of believing the things that we can see, even though they are unseen. We are born from the abundance of believing in that which faith gives us the substance to actually call evidence of the stuff that hasn't shown up yet. And so for me, our beloved Black children who are blessed to be so are the evidence of things unseen. They are the substance of everything that we hope for. And as a mother to two of those babies that are evidence, as an organizer who is able to show from the Black liberation struggle history all the way into the Afrofuture, that St. Louis is the epicenter of evidence of things unseen. I believe that a congregation just like St. John's is really, really ready, not only prepared, but ready to even go further and to adjust and to do whatever we need to do to connect through such a, I think, constantly timeless, within and ahead of their time initiative like CDF Freedom Schools, because they treat children as if they are who they have the potential to be.
Amen.
James Baldwin said, your crown has been bought and paid for. And CDF Freedom Schools treats babies like they are growing up into the crown that's being held over their heads.
Amen.
I'm triple blessed to be involved in this organization.
Thank you so much, Reverend Higgins. And Reverend Bruner, what evidence of things unseen are you seeing at Peace through this collaboration?
Really has everything to do with my relationship with Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson. There's an opportunity here to transform lives, right? That's the bottom line. And transform the lives of young children, scholars, transform the lives of young college age students, and transform the life of your congregation. And he was right, of course, on every count. And so, first of all, I would just say about Webster Groves, there is a part of Webster Groves that many people have forgotten, has been marginalized by the community in many ways. And so this was an opportunity for us to reach out to some of the young children and their families who didn't have opportunities that many people in Webster Groves would have. And so that was one of the things that we thought we could do. But I think the other piece, and what you probably really want me to talk about, is this transformation of the congregation, right? And it truly has, right? So there's a couple of ways. People thought it was a great idea, right? Oh yes, let's do that. And so there was a lot of work and intent in making it happen, but nobody was prepared for what happened when the first year, 25 little scholars ran through the doors of our church. And the relationships that were built between the congregation and the scholars, because we saw them all the time. We were serving breakfast and lunch. People were there all the time. And, you know, one of the women is all of a sudden grandma to some of the scholars, and just this amazing relationship building with the children, the scholars, and their families. Really, really something else, so that when the next year happened, it was like coming home, it was reunion, it was all of that kind of stuff. But here's the other piece. So not only was it just this amazing way to build relationships, but what happens when those relationships are built, right? Now, all of a sudden, right, we understand clearly that there are children who are being left out in many ways in our society. And things like Medicaid expansion then becomes not just some kind of intellectual exercise, it becomes this real thing, right? That the children that we know and love, how are the children, right? That's another thing Tracy Blackman always asks, right? How are the children? We know that those children that we claim now as part of our family too, could use healthcare, right? Like, and so those kinds of initiatives start happening. We become far more engaged in grassroots organizing, Medicaid expansion, livable wage, right? We're on the street, we're petitioning, we're gathering signatures. All of that work is happening. Why? Because we have connections that are real. And then when we have something happen, like George Floyd is killed, right, by a police officer, the first thing that happens is one of the people from the congregation I serve comes to me and says, Wendy, we have to do something here. Can we stand vigil on the street of Webster, on the main street of Webster Groves? And by the end of the day, we had 25 people standing vigil every Friday night from that day on until now. And we continue to do that. Even when racial slurs were placed on our sidewalk and the city said, oh, this is so not who we are. And my response then to the mayor can be, I think it is exactly who we are, and we need to address that. So it's an opening. And then, of course, it becomes even the stronger will of the people of this congregation to change structural and systemic racism, because we realize that we're all connected and that we also suffer. Anyway, isn't that something? What 25 scholars can do.
The roots of CDF Freedom Schools, to Wendy's point, you know, the curriculum for Freedom Schools is rooted in the civil rights movement, right? So the origins of CDF Freedom Schools comes from Charles Cobb, a UCC college student. And it's rooted in the Freedom Summer of 1964. And so there were college students coming from all over the country to Mississippi to be a part of this movement to secure justice and voting rights for Black citizens, which is amazing because what's the topic of conversations related to voting rights right now in 2021? And this was in 1964. Okay, so the work there's always work to be done. So those are maybe even the early roots of parental and family engagement, you know, welcoming all into the fold. But I needed to bring that history to the forefront, especially and in particularly because of where we are now in March of 2021 relating to voting rights.
I wanted to thank you all so much for this really full and brilliant pastoral theological reflection on the congregations you serve and the ways in which Freedom School is bringing the work and life of God into the congregation and inviting the congregation out into the community, into the work and life of God. It's really been a powerful example of that.